Hi, my name is Rick Brimacombe, and on behalf of the Minneapolis Club and my firm, Brimacombe & Associates, welcome to Club Entrepreneur. Today concludes our 8th season of Club Entrepreneur. Thank you all for making this year a success. Over the last season, which runs from September to June, we've covered topics such as grumpy old VCs, internet marketing, a 20 by 20 session, and for those of you who don't know what that is, 20 slides, 20 seconds a slide, 2020 session, drones, millennials, innovation and creativity, and last month, Internet of Things. The power of Club E lies with all of you, so thanks again. In addition, this group has an amazing team of sponsors. Not only are they accomplished professionals, but they have been incredibly supportive as well. Outside of this room, they have all become friends and trusted advisors of mine, and for that, I'm very grateful. So before we begin today's panel, I'd like to recognize our sponsors. First, the IP law firm, Swagman, Lumberg, Woosner. Olson Thielen CPA is a full-service accounting firm and their valuation and forensic services group. I know I have a couple people from Olson Thielen. One here, one in the back. Joe in the back. One more time, Joe, give us a raise. All right, and then Helmuth and Johnson, general practice law firm, and I know we have one or two H&J folks back at the back table. Thank you very much. Irish Titan, web development and e-commerce company. Oh, Adrian snuck in under the gun there. And then M.A. Peterson, a design build company doing refreshes, remodels, and new builds. And I don't know if anybody made it from M.A. Peterson, not today. Well, anyway, thank you to our sponsors. Without their support, events like this wouldn't happen. So to the extent that you can, please support them. Again, as I've told you all, I've become friends and have interacted with them on many occasions. So please use their services if you can. On the announcement front, anybody who's interested in learning more about the Minneapolis Club, please seek me out. It's been good for me both personally and professionally. So anybody who'd like to learn more about the club, see me. In terms of connecting with the group, there's 3 ways. We got the website, clube.com, and we also have a LinkedIn group, which is Club Entrepreneur-Minneapolis, and these cards on your table point you towards those items. There's almost 1,600 people in the LinkedIn group now, so it's a great way to stay connected. And then also I have an email list, so you can give me an email, your business card, and I'll add you to the email list. One of the things we'll get to in a couple minutes are a couple of 60-second elevator pitches with some emerging sports technology companies. So why don't we use that as our cue for you 4 folks to come on up. And then a reminder, generally speaking, this group meets on the first Thursday of the month. I moved it today to get the panel that I wanted. So generally speaking, it's the first Thursday. With that said, we take off July and August. So I will see you all back on September 10th. And as soon as I told you that it was the first Thursday, that's the second Thursday. And that's because of the holiday in September. And we're going to actually do one of those 20 by 20 sessions in September. If anybody has an interest in presenting, see me. Again, it's 20 slides, 20 seconds a slide. You tell a story. We'll have 6 little mini presentations that day versus kind of one speaker. It's a lot of fun if you haven't seen one of those. And then, as I mentioned last time, I'm going to bring Club Entrepreneur to some new markets, and the St. Paul chapter is going to be the first one. We're going to launch that in September. That's going to be the 3rd Wednesday. Chum Struve, where's Chum? In the back. Chum is going to be the front to that and the figurehead, and going to make that rock and roll. So if anybody wants to learn about the St. Paul chapter of Club E, seek out Chum or myself afterwards. And that leads us to today's panel, Sports Technology in Minnesota. 1972, then Vikings kicker Fred Cox took some new materials technology, Nerf foam, and came up with an idea for the Nerf football. Today, there are at least 30 companies serving the intersection of sports, technology, and business. And when I started and put this panel together, the list I had was about 15. I doubled it, and then with the people that came here today, I probably could add another 10 or so because there are a bunch of folks here today that I didn't have on my list. So there's really a great intersection and cluster being built here in Minnesota on sports, technology, and business. And before we get to our panel, today I've brought you a few of the intriguing up-and-comers with some 60-second elevator pitches. And after we hear them, we will go on to our panel. Guys, I just was going to set it up by alphabetical with the company name. So our first one is Jason Cole of FanMaker.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking some time to hear from us today. FanMaker is, at this point in time, about 7 years old. We run a software program running loyalty programs for sports teams. And this ranges everything from your hometown Minnesota Wild to rugby teams in Australia, soccer teams in the UK, hockey teams in Canada, and even private high schools throughout the South. Our program networks disparate data networks at its core. So we're combining real-time point-of-sale analytics at these venues with ticketing information that are both purchased and sold, overlaying that with socially graphed data and appending Nielsen data and other items purchased by the teams to paint out a fan profile. At our core, our objective is to allow each and every one of our clients to deliver a more personalized experience to their fans. That could be through improved creative, improved messaging, or anything else. When we look at really new trends that we're on, at this point in time, we've installed beacons in more sporting venues than any other company in the world. And these beacons, for us, are allowing us to bring micro-location to be layered upon the personics we've already been tracking.
I warned everybody. I said I'm going to get the big hook out if you go longer than 60 seconds. So Jason was taking that literally. Dave Herrig is here to talk about Integrity Horse, and that's kind of exciting for me because I've known David for a number of years. Have interacted with him on a couple of different fronts. He's spoken before at Club E and then also connected up with his industry counterpart on the management team, actually right here at Club Entrepreneur. So with that, Dave Herrig, Integrity Horse.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to try to make this a little interactive. I'm wearing a jawbone up to how many people have one of these wearable devices? Fitbit, Jawbone, Nike Fuel Band, half the room. I think it's probably one of the most exciting new areas of sports technology is the wearables-based activity tracking. And it's become so mainstream now. What we're seeing is companies starting to create customized devices for individual athletic activities. Surfboards, snowboarders are coming with their own devices. And about 4 months ago, I'll have her raise her hand. I met Julia Paddock, sitting right back there, working on a really innovative solution specifically for horse riders. About 7 million recreational and professional horse riders in North America, and to date, no company has targeted a wearable device for them yet. The name of the company is called Integrity Horse, and Julia started it nearly 4 years ago, long before wearable tech even caught up to underwrite it. And it's an exciting social impact vision. It's an exciting product. And if you get a chance, I'd invite you guys to single her out afterward and talk about it and hear what we're putting together.
Okay, for those of you who've been here before, I've been able to weave De La Salle basketball into a few conversations over the last couple of years. I've been able to do it again today. So my son Eli is here in the front row, and then Nick Carroll, who's representing Prep Hoops, is also involved with De La Salle basketball. So that's my plug for today. Nick Carroll, Prep Hoops.
So I thought it would be valuable to kind of give a little bit of a backstory to how the company came to be. So my background, I was an assistant Division III coach here locally, and I'm sitting in the coach's office. It's 12:30 at night. I'm by myself, sifting through stats, sifting through all conference teams, trying to figure out honestly who are we supposed to be recruiting. And I already had the information of there's about 150,000 kids a year that are graduating looking to go play basketball at the next level. And there's the top 1% that you guys see on ESPN and Rivals.com. Well, there's another 99% that are going to lower level Division I schools or Division IIs or Division IIIs. And there's a lack of information connection between the schools and the prospects. And so with all that information, we took a shoestring budget. We started our first website just with the goal of being the most comprehensive resource for high school basketball across the state of Minnesota for kids at all levels. So we cover a kid that's going to go play at Hamlin the same as we cover Tyus Jones. And we've people essentially flocked to it. The colleges loved it, parents loved it. Since then, we've expanded. Over the last 18 months, we've started to branch out. We're in 18 markets. Over the last 18 months, we plan to continue our expansion. Once we figure basketball out, we'll be getting into other sports. And so we're really excited about our growth and really excited about the opportunity to be here.
And last but not least is Blaine Tatro. Blaine and I met about 2 years ago at a coffee shop. He was just incubating his idea, so it's been fun for me to see how he's made progress. And with that, again, Blaine Tatro of PrepTree.
All right, thank you, Rick. Imagine a billion-dollar industry without a true market leader, a data-driven industry that hasn't fully evolved to embrace technology. I'm a former college football coach. I coached for almost a decade, and I found that industry, college athletics recruiting, and it was very hungry for a solution. That solution I found, or I created, is called PrepTree.com. PrepTree redefines the college athletics recruiting process by connecting recruits, high school coaches, and college coaches so they can leverage technology to exchange information, video, and communicate online in a form that is currently archaic for that existing process. Ultimately, our application will pair millions of recruits with thousands of colleges so they can establish these fruitful college education and athletic experiences. PrepTree has partnered with the Minnesota Football Coaches Association to enroll nearly 90% of metro area high schools already. Now we are turning to investors to pursue expanding across the rest of the United States. To help accomplish this, we will be soliciting those investors soon, and if you have an interest in what we're doing with PrepTree in regard to redefining the recruiting process, I'd be very interested in speaking with you. Thank you.
Okay, so now as we turn to our panel, I'm excited to say today that we're going to be covering youth sports, professional sports, fantasy sports, and iGaming. Today's panelists are Justin Koffenberg of Sport Engine, Rob Fithian of Sports Radar US, which is formerly Sports Data, Paul Charchian of LeagueSafe.com, and then Tori Simonson is filling in for Chris Carlson. Chris Carlson had a family health issue come up this morning, not life-threatening, but nonetheless, Tori was very kind to sit in for us. And since she's on the sales side, she can probably tell the story better than Chris can anyway. So, with that, we're going to give each of the panelists a couple of minutes to give an intro, a little bit of background on their company. Anybody want to volunteer to go first? Rob, you want to tackle it on the far end?
I'm happy to kick it off. Can you guys hear me okay? So before I kick it off, I need to ask a question. If anyone in the room has a sports fanatic that likes to collect data, I've got to hire 50 people in the next 2 months. So come see me. Age 18 to 24 is kind of the age range, and they can pick as many shifts as they want to work. So I've got a lot of hiring to do in the next 2 months. So that's just a shameless plug to start.
Do I get a recruiting fee?
You may. So yeah, my name is Rob Fithian. I've been in the sports space, actually left public accounting and started with Paul Charchian in the fantasy space. We built a company called Fanball. Exited that in 2005?
Yep.
Yeah. So we sold the company in 2005. Paul started his business. I kind of tried a couple things that didn't work out, and then focused in on the data space. So if you want a little background on the data space, there's been one official partner in the U.S. for over 15 years, and they're out of Chicago, called Stats. So when I looked at getting into the space, I flew around the country and used my Rolodex and met with all the people that took data from Stats and found out there was a lot of frustration in the monopolistic environment. So I came back to the Twin Cities, decided to lean on my friends at the University of St. Thomas and open up shop right on campus in St. Paul. Wrote a simple business plan that said Stats is $70 million in revenue, cash flow is $30. I want to build a company to start that's $7 million in revenue and cash flows $3 million. So it was a 2-slide presentation and raise money. Data, if you think about it, is immensely scalable because you gather the data once and you sell it over and over again. So 2010, we started the company. We are now servicing over 300 clients, including Facebook, Twitter, and Google. We recently, was in the news about a month ago, struck a deal with the NFL to become the official data distributor for the NFL. So we're going to deploy capital to get closer to the leagues because we believe that in the next 3 to 5 years, there's going to be a lot of interesting data, as we heard about the wearables. I think the leagues will start to use the wearable technology, and we'd like to lock up those rights. So that's really where we see deploying our capital, getting closer to the source of the data. So that's my background.
Thanks, Rob. Justin?
Sure. Justin Koffenberg, Sport Engine. Sport Engine is a company we founded in 2008. It was on the heels of a previous business we had started while we were in school, which was a little bit more of a custom design, custom dev shop. But we got back to focusing on our original passion, which was sports technology, specifically youth sports technology. And I'll save you the whole backstory, but suffice it to say we were, my co-founder and I, very inspired by the homes that we grew up in, having multi-decade volunteer youth sports volunteer administrators as parents. My dad is a longtime volunteer in Shakopee youth hockey. So I had a strong appreciation for what goes on kind of beneath the waterline, behind the scenes to run a youth sports organization, but it didn't necessarily come together for me until I was myself on the Eau Claire Youth Hockey Board when I was playing hockey in school. And it became obvious to me that what was clearly a labor of love for him was actually, a hell of an effort, to the tune of, 200 to 400 hours per year on average per administrator, kind of per kid in sports. So a tangible percentage of total waking hours. And while we built solutions that became prevalent to help solve those needs, what most of the public sees is the things that we've developed on the front end. Websites for sports organizations, mobile app for sports organizations, things like that. The real value proposition to Sport Engine is that we built kind of an enterprise-grade underlying platform that does a lot of the back office tasks in an automated way for a youth sports organization. Player registration automation, coaching background check automation, payment processing, injury data records, sending information automatically from the Youth Sports Association to their state governing body, to their national governing body to eliminate that previous manual flow of data that used to exist. So when we talk to a youth sports organization, we talk to them a lot about the things they need on the front end, websites, statistics systems, standing systems, mobile apps, things like that. Where the lights really go on is when you talk to that youth sports volunteer who's responsible for processing hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in player registration fees and accurately splitting those payments between their bank account, the state body bank account, the national body bank account, the background check provider, the insurance provider, all the things that happen behind the scenes to run a sports organization. So we're kind of really our goal is that we are aiming to be that type of sales force of amateur sports, in the sense that once you've implemented it, it's hard to imagine running your organization without it. So we've raised about $40 million in outside venture capital, predominantly from, or I should say originally from, the Twin Cities Angels, some of which are in the room here today, and then from East Coast-based venture capital firms such as Causeway, Highland Capital Partners, and then from West Coast firms such as Eldorado Partners, Raleigh Ventures, and others. We have about 250 employees here in Northeast Minneapolis, and are really still just kind of a 1 or 2% share of the youth sports market. So pretty exciting greenfield opportunity ahead.
Great, thanks, Justin. Appreciate that very much. Paul?
Well, as Rob mentioned, Rob and I started a fantasy sports company in 1993 when we had more hair and less weight. Pretty much right out of school. And back then, what I think we didn't know then was that Minneapolis and the Twin Cities was probably the nation's biggest hotbed for fantasy sports. And when we started a local magazine here in town, we had a lot of success, and not knowing that people in Arizona weren't playing, we started shipping magazines to all these other destinations around the country, only to find out the hard way that it's kind of a cold weather pastime, and there weren't as many people playing as we thought. At the time, there were probably 2 million people playing fantasy sports in the U.S. back then. Fast forward to today, and there's 42 million people playing in the U.S. and Canada. Is there anybody in this room, anyone, that doesn't know somebody personally who plays fantasy sports? Everybody does. 1 out of 3 men under 40 years old plays fantasy sports, and it's played in the last year. So the fantasy sports marketplace has grown dramatically. We were lucky to get in early. We sold Fanball in 2005. Rob mentioned his path. My path since then was collecting some angel investors and starting LeagueSafe. LeagueSafe is PayPal for fantasy sports. Most of us play with a little skin in the game, but fantasy football commissioners have to shake down deadbeats like Tori who don't want to pay up. And you're trying to get checks from one guy and you're trying to get cash from another guy. Justin's got an IOU that because Rob owes Justin money, I need to go to Rob to get Justin's money, and it's just a huge hassle. So we've electronified the process of collecting league funds. Then the other problem is that the commissioners would collect the funds in August for football and then go spend them. And then at the end of the season, they don't have the money. So we lock down the funds for the course of the season and make sure everybody gets paid and that the right people get paid at the end of the year. So we're now, this will be our 8th season with LeagueSafe. We've processed $100 million through our system. And at this point, we've got it's a very niche market compared to what we were doing before when Rob and I were solving every problem that there was in fantasy sports. This is a very specific application, and we've had a few competitors that have come and gone that have tried to get into the space, but we own 99.5% of the space of what we do. There you go.
And Paul, I was an old subscriber back in the day, so thank you. And then also being a longtime commissioner, I can fully attest to the need to shake people down for the funds.
Yeah, we send nagging emails to everybody, so you don't have to be that guy that has to have the uncomfortable conversation with Tori. Tori, I know you have kids to feed and all, but we got a fantasy league here.
Thanks, Paul. So Tori, you're next.
Hi, everybody. Tori Simonson. I am the Digital Sales and Acquisitions Manager for 4Cubed. I probably should take a lot of lessons from these guys since iGaming is just kind of getting into the DFS space from affiliate marketing. But kind of what I'm here to talk about is who 4Cubed is in the iGaming space and kind of what we do to help online operators in the European markets as well as in the U.S. regulated markets attract new players, so player acquisitions. 4Cubed is an internet marketing company specializing specifically in the iGaming, so-called gambling space, so poker, casino, sports, DFS, social gaming aspects. When you think about Zynga, Words with Friends, Caesars Entertainment. With that being said, we work specifically in, I would say, probably a pay-per-performance model through PPC, email marketing, direct-to-player acquisitions. 4Cubed is kind of the parent company of 3 other brands that really fall underneath the company. You guys might have heard of a few options. Your Poker Cash is a free bankroll community for recreational poker and casino players looking to test the money in real money gambling. The other opportunity is PAS.net. We are often referred to as a digital advertising agency for those of you who are not familiar with the affiliate marketing industry. And PAS.net was actually founded by Chris Carlson back in 2005 to help online operators garner new player acquisitions. Well, as a 10-person company, there isn't really an opportunity for us to take advantage of all that traffic and send it directly to the operators. So we developed PAS.net to bring in what we would call publishers and affiliates to take a lot of the operator offers that are out there from player incentivized traffic and giving those affiliates the opportunity to take it to their poker, casino, DFS, sportsbook networks and give them an incentivized CPA, CPL, rev share agreements to bring that traffic in through PAS.net. The huge advantage of the affiliate network running under 4Cubed is that we are a one-stop shop solution for many of the affiliate industry that's out there within the iGaming space. We offer 24-hour stats reporting, one-time publisher payment processing to allow people who are out there gambling on multiple different operating networks to be able to encompass all of their payment processing, all of their stats, all their player reporting into one centralized system. And at the end of the day, at the end of the month, when you are making revenues, you can cash out with one check versus going to multiple operators to look at that. The third property within 4Cubed that we look at is a property called Poker Affiliate Listings. This is actually a property that we acquired back in 2012 in regards to helping operators directly recruit new affiliates through their channels. So we're no longer playing that middleman of being that affiliate marketing company for them, driving player traffic. We're sending them players and affiliates directly to them to be able to work directly, to give them the opportunity that this is a two-way relationship. We don't want to be the middleman all the time. We want to be able to provide a win-win for both the operators, the players, and us as affiliate marketing company. That's kind of the overview.
Great, thanks. Thanks, appreciate it very much, Tori. So I have a list of questions here which I can certainly work from, but I also want to make sure that you all can ask questions. So this is supposed to be an interactive part of the conversation here. So if anybody has a question, please raise their hand. Mike.
No surprise, huh? Why is Minnesota such a hotbed for sports technology? I've lived all over the country, and I know that there are sports fans everywhere else. What's different with us here?
Just to play back the question, if you didn't hear it in the back, was basically why Minnesota, what's going on here, why is it a hotbed for sports technology? Anybody want to start with that one?
Well, I'll kick it off. I think the sports technology ideas are many, and they're all over the country. This community is pretty supportive of the Angel round, which is a lot of young ideas with young people. Usually underestimate the amount of money and time it takes to get their idea to market. So it's a little bit of a tribute to this community. We're sort of more supportive than other areas of the country. So the second round of funding that's needed to get the product done, and the understanding and the support to get an idea to stable and then to cash flow will happen in this market more than anywhere. So that's, I think, one of the keys.
I think for us we had one network effect item, and you can see why if a Groupon's in Chicago, while daily deal sites come up all over in Chicago, there's talent, there's network effect, the money understands what that investment is. So you can see why communities grow a particular industry, and who knows how it starts. But in our case, we had one network effect item. There's a local company here that does sports scheduling, Maximum Solutions in Plymouth, Minnesota. And because they had a lot of ice rinks on their platform and they were nice to us, we got to work with a lot of hockey associations. And it was pretty much as simple as that. If we didn't have that distribution channel early, sales would have been a lot more difficult. So it only took kind of one network effect partnership for us to get off the ground. And then I think, at least for us, it was the perfect intersection of the fact that we were in Minnesota, which had a high economic value sport in hockey, which was very prevalent in it and viewed as a nationwide leader, and we happened to concentrate there. I'd argue that our company probably only could have been started in a few states across the country that may also have been a respective hotbed for a large sport, maybe Southern California soccer, maybe Texas football. There's only a few that just gave you enough backyard critical mass to get out of neutral. That was kind of the why for us.
I think the cold weather is a bit of a factor. I really do. I mentioned earlier we were sending magazines around all these other cities, not realizing that people just they don't play in Miami. There's too many other things to do in the winter. We've got hockey, others don't. We've got other things to do. We are the smallest market nationally to have all four of the major sports teams here. We are a sports ingrained culture, and in part it's just frankly there's just not as much to do. It's just the reality of it. It sounds bad. I'm the president of the Fantasy Sports Trade Association. Rob is on the board as well. We've got 280 member companies. The overwhelming majority are from the Northeast and the Midwest, and a little bit on the West Coast. We have very few member companies that are in Tucson and Houston and Dallas, and maybe none between those cities. So I really do think there's something to cold weather in sports that I think is a stronger activator, where they're just, you're not out building a surfing app.
Wow, I wish I had a good answer, but I'm in the iGaming industry, so I can go anywhere. So, I guess I do have to kind of give a little bit of gratitude to Rick. He is actually a part of 4Cubed in some way. Kind of shaping who we are as a foundation and company and kind of where we're going in the future. But to be honest, CEO Chris Carlson actually moved the company from New York to Minneapolis for a couple different reasons. One being business economics. Think of how many top 100 companies are here in Minnesota that started. It's a huge economic industry for us. But then also from the entrepreneurial background, how many startups come out of Minnesota? A lot. What is the relationships that you have with creating relationships, especially in the internet marketing space? How many internet marketing agencies are just downtown in Minneapolis right now? A ton. How many contract internet marketing agencies are down here? A ton. How many SEO? You think about that. I mean, we are a huge shelter here in the Minneapolis, Minnesota market for a thriving entrepreneurial spirit to start a company. And I don't think that Chris would have taken it anywhere else. You know, we could seriously be in Malta, Serbia, California. We could go to a regulated market where there's regulated gambling like New Jersey or Nevada. But to be honest, you don't have the support unless you're in Minneapolis.
Okay, again, if anybody has a question, let me know. All right, next question. Describe for a little bit the competitive landscape in the space that you're in, just to give folks kind of a better understanding of what you're dealing with from a competition standpoint.
Yeah, I kind of covered that with being monopolistic, and Stats was the major player. And we've made the decision to focus on the leagues and form relationships, take over the exclusive data rights with the leagues, and displace Stats. So it's really a two-horse race. I failed to mention in my intro that in 2013, we started the company in 2010. In 2013, a European company called Sportradar, who controlled 40% of the data in the rest of the world except the U.S., wanted an entry point into the U.S., and they did diligence on 6 different companies and chose us. So we joined forces with Sportradar. The Angels exited successfully, so they're happy. And now we have the capital to do the deals that I'm describing. So.
Yeah, I think for us, the competitive landscape is probably informed by, you know, how the companies attack the market. So when we entered the space, this was not like a first mover advantage. This was a different attack on the market. There are hundreds of companies that build something for youth sports organizations. It's a passion play for a lot of people, and there's a lot of sophisticated moms and dads who are VP engineering in their day job, and they have a kid that plays baseball at night, and they naturally build apps, they build scoring tools, they build stats tools. No shortage of competition. We knew that going in. The difference being that we decided that all these kind of complementary apps, team management apps, live scoring apps, scheduling apps, all the things that existed out there were so disparate in the sense that they were a series of point solutions, and they were making the life better for the average coach or the average team manager, but not actually making the life better for the sports organization as a whole, who had this real burden of having all their data in a single location, taking all that data in a single location and then transferring it to their state body and transferring it to their national body, and having 10 different applications running their different tools made that essentially an impossible exercise. So Sport Engine was very specifically built as a platform play, a true platform, a true service-oriented architecture, API-driven, true platform, in the sense that our goal is to be kind of the center of the youth sports universe and have complementary relationships with people who might be viewed as competitors, scheduling apps, statistics apps, team management apps, background check apps, coaching education apps, all of those things, ensuring that all that data flows into a central repository and being that backbone for the sports organization, making their many disparate applications feel like a single repository and a single application. So in that way that we attack the market, there's very little competition, even though it is a noisy and fragmented market.
Well, the fantasy sports industry has changed dramatically in the last couple of years. People familiar with FanDuel and DraftKings? Seen ads? Yeah? It's blown up. And with their entry and the amount of money that they have been able to raise and turn around and spend, daily fantasy sports, which, if you're not familiar, allows you to play fantasy sports instead of over a whole league just in one day and resolves itself in one day, has become extraordinarily popular, and it's very, very fun to play. And it's turned into a massive sub-industry within the fantasy sports marketplace. And those two companies have got 95% of our industry in the daily fantasy space, but there are 100 others that are trying to make some kind of inroads. It's a lot of mom and pop shops. It's a lot of 2-person startups and a lot of other companies that feel like they've found some way to they think compete meaningfully with them. That said, I don't think anybody in the daily fantasy space is making money yet. I don't think a single one of them are making money, but they're all raising money. And there's DraftKings is on the verge of closing a reported $300 million investment from Disney, ESPN, that will block out FanDuel from advertising on ESPN, which is obviously very significant. And both companies right now are on track to have billion-dollar IPOs within a couple of years based on a billion-dollar evaluation. So that part of our space has grown wildly in the fantasy sports industry.
But Paul, it's more, at this point, it's more of a marketing thing versus the business is there, correct?
Well, marketing is how these people have attracted a lot of users in a very short time, and they're all about player acquisition, Rick. So
Okay.
yes, it is definitely a marketing play first right now, profitability second.
Okay, all right, great. Tori, you want to talk about the competitive landscape in the affiliate marketing and iGaming space?
Yeah, so I think when you are in an agency world working as an affiliate marketer, anybody that is working to send traffic specifically to operators, you're always competing with yourself time and time again. You know, who's going to get that traffic? Is the operator going to source their own traffic? Are you going to send them their traffic? Or are you going to reward somebody who is within a poker, casino, DFS, sportsbook industry to send their own players to the operators to get the traffic? So I think 4Cubed is really built on creating wins, right? So as I mentioned earlier, it's got to work for the operator, it's got to work for the affiliate marketer, it's got to work for us as a company to be able to be successful all the way around. So within that being said, I talked about the 3 properties earlier. We have a direct-to-player, an affiliate marketing, and then we also have an affiliate listing site. Those are all the models that I just covered as far as where as an operator can get traffic from. So we're constantly competing against ourselves in that space, but the opportunity is that it doesn't matter where it comes from as long as we want to be perceived as we want to be a partner. We don't want to be somebody that's taking your business. We want to be somebody that's driving your business on an economic model that's going to make sense for everybody all the way around. And so with that kind of being said, we, definitely work with the operators to incentivize our traffic that we're typically sending through, again, if you look at traditional affiliate marketing, rev share agreements, cost per player acquisition that gets sent to their sites. And we create these partnerships where we can actually sub out those offers to somebody like Steve over here who has 5 buddies that's looking to play on a sports book. And so Steve is going to get incentivized with a $50 incentive to his bank account because he sent 5 players through us to a sportsbook site or a DFS site. And so I think in that space, we just want to make sure that every one of our entities within the 4Q portfolio is profitable, and it does mean that we do compete against ourselves within each vertical, but we also create wins with the partnerships that we have.
Great, thanks, Tori. Again, if anybody has any questions, raise your hand and I will get to you to the extent I can. Panelists, as you look kind of into your crystal ball and you think about what the future might hold, what does the future look like in the various verticals that you all participate in?
Yeah, so again, carrying on the same theme, the bet we're making, and it's a pretty big bet, is to invest with the leagues and get closer to the data. We believe that the data world has been pretty flat to date. It's just play-by-play data. Now you're going to get chip data, biometric data. And then the real question is, what are you going to do to productize it? How are you going to reach the consumer? And where are you going to see it show up? And that's going to be a pretty exciting 3 to 5 year journey, and we want to be right in the middle of it.
I think for us, right now, I would say the industry smart money is on a consolidation happening in the youth sports, kind of the amateur sports technology market sometime in the next few years. I think that could be slightly premature. I think this could be a situation where you're frustrated by how little happens in a year, but you look back in 10 and you're amazed at how much occurred. So I don't necessarily think it's 2 to 3 years. I think it could be slightly longer, but I would say generally the VC or private equity people thinking about this market are expecting a consolidation of a lot of smaller players. So Sport Engine is the largest player in the market by a fairly substantial multiple, and thus we spend a lot of time thinking about ways to grow the business organically versus some of those inorganic roll-up opportunities that may exist as well. I do think that it's an attractive market to ultimately end up on a single platform. I do think ultimately sports is conducive to having 1 or 2 players win the market, in the sense that if there are 1 or 2 players that win the market, you, your family, your athlete, your data is in one location. Thus, your family calendar is automatically pulling in your son's softball schedule, your daughter's soccer schedule, your son's hockey calendar, All your information is automatically flowing to the state body and to the national body. One credit card is automatically paying all your sports bills. I do think there is a lot of advantage to one or two players emerging as kind of the winner in this market, and I think that's why the smart money is on a consolidation coming.
Fantasy sports is only growing. We're going to release new data later this month about significant growth over the 42 million fantasy players I told you about earlier. And it's being coveted by leagues. It's now marketers are understanding the power of fantasy sports. The demographic is a marketer's dream. The average age is 29 years old. Average household income is $90,000. It's an affluent pastime despite being very young. The engagement level is ridiculous. In season, the fantasy players end up thinking about their team for an hour a day. That's more than they think about the girlfriend. The engagement level is rivaled, I believe, only by video games, and the engagement level, though, is even easier to monetize because these are people that are early adopters that watch twice as much televised sports. You know, the real reason that the NFL and all the other sports have aligned so closely with fantasy over the past 5 or 6 years is they've understood that fantasy players are moving the needle on their TV deals. We're the ones watching these god-awful Tampa Bay versus the Jaguars. Nobody used to care about that game at all, but we're watching it because it's life and death with what our stupid Blake Bortles is going to throw. Is he going to get to 250 yards or not? We care about that. And we will watch these horrible games that nobody else will watch. So that's why we've driven the TV numbers way up, and the leagues have monetized that to the tunes of many billions of dollars. And that's a lot of and now the leagues are propagating fantasy sports downward. I mean, for years and years they wanted nothing to do with fantasy. We forced their hand eventually. Now they're making so much money off it. They're opening the audience of fantasy, and they're pushing it. You go to the NFL Network and every other commercials for their fantasy products. They want you to play. They're cultivating that market, and we're going to continue to grow.
I believe that the future of 4Cube kind of lies in a couple different areas. As mentioned in the very beginning, 4Cube runs internet marketing for European iGaming markets, which is a very green market. But we also run internet marketing acquisitions for the U.S. regulated markets. As an example, if you're in New Jersey, you can now gamble with WSOP and Party Poker, as well as in Nevada. You guys will hear legislation talking about California and Pennsylvania are looking to come on board. We thought for sure it would have been by the end of 2014, however, it's been delayed. But the future really lies in the U.S. coming back with legislation to regulate online gambling within specific markets. There's actually just a release that came out this morning saying that the quarter-over-quarter revenues out of New Jersey, they expected to decline and actually increase. So they are seeing quite a bit of turnover in recognized revenue from a state tax level to keep pursuing regulating the states. And our goal is to make sure that California and Pennsylvania come on board. As those do, 4Cube will continue to be licensed in states to start promoting those offers, as well as we'll continue to capitalize in the European markets, Australian markets, when it comes to working with online iGaming industries to help capture that affiliate traffic. As you guys talked about, 18 to 24, 18 to 29 is the primary space for DFS. 4Cube is also looking at adopting the DFS portfolio. As we know, about 40% of an online iGaming player who isn't currently in the DFS space will eventually cross over. So that is another avenue that we are also looking at, which is part of why we're here today, is because this is an opportunity for us to capitalize in the DFS space, as well as it's an area where it is acceptable in the U.S. and it does allow us to keep sending that traffic to those markets as well. So I do believe that we'll continue to grow in the European markets, which has been our strongest market since 2005. We'll continue to see state legislation approve regulated states, with California and Pennsylvania being the first, and we'll also adopt new product verticals such as DFS in the very near future.
And for those of you who haven't followed the iGaming world like Tori and I have, basically almost everywhere else in the rest of the world it's legal. It's not legal here except for 3 states, and it's, as Tori said, looking like we're going to open up some other states. And fantasy has been able to kind of skirt around the gaming issues because you're not betting on a team, you're picking players. And Paul, we can probably save the regulation discussion for another day, but maybe you could give a 30-second, 1-minute thing about regulation in fantasy while we're here talking about this?
Well, we're currently totally unregulated, which is great, and we're like to see that continue for as long as we can. However, as daily fantasy continues to propagate, and you've probably seen ads, they talk a lot about money that you can win. We believe that there will be a move to regulate, and so as an industry, we're going to try to hijack that movement by offering meaningful, legitimate self-regulation within our own industry. A little bit like in the software world where there's ratings on the back of the box. There was, for a long time, there were senators and hearings about how they had to do something about violence in video games. And so the industry came together, put together meaningful rules and ways to address some of these issues. We will be doing the same thing over the course of the next year in the fantasy sports space.
Question?
Rob, I'd be curious if you can give us a few examples of some of your more interesting clients that are buying your data, who you sell to, and to the degree you're sharing what's the pricing model, what are they willing to pay?
The question over here in the front, if you didn't hear it, was who are some of Rob's clients, pricing models that they're using, and maybe some examples of opportunities that he's chasing after.
Sure. So here's a good one. If you go to Google now and you type in Tom Brady, you used to get a string of links that you click on, and people pay for that rating. And that's been Google's model. So they're now coming up with typing in Tom Brady, and you get his picture and some stats and stuff about his wife and Deflategate. And we're populating the statistics on that search. So it's an interesting move on Google's part because they're sort of cannibalizing the revenue that they get off of people buying the search spot. And so that's kind of an interesting, kind of a newer data example. Another one is Facebook. They want to add context. They know enough about you to know you're a Vikings fan. And so they want to insert that score of the game live into your Facebook experience so your friends can start a conversation that might be a Packer fan. So they're using data to add context to the experience, and that's the same thing with Twitter. So they've chose us over the incumbent because we have a very modern approach and use APIs, and it's easy to grab our data and parse it. And our pricing was lower than stats, so we came in at a lower price point because of the way we've architected our business. We can scale cheaply. So those are just a couple of modern examples. And the more traditional example is if you go to CBSSports.com or NBC Sports, you're going to have this thing that's called a game center or a game cast. A lot of people look at that regularly, either on their mobile phone or on the website. And those kind of experiences need really rich, deep data, which is what we do. We collect everything about it. We got 20,000 U.S. events we collect data for. That's why I'm hiring 50 new people. So those are just some examples.
And in the fantasy sports space, we're really excited about what Rob's company can do for the NFL because we've been working off of the same set of stats for 50 years, since the beginning of time, beginning of stats. And now what Rob's advanced technology we hope will allow us to do is start finding a lot new stats to work against that are a lot more meaningful. For example, let's say I'm the quarterback and I throw a screen pass to Torrey and at my own 10-yard line, and Torrey breaks 72 tackles on the way to the end zone and scores a touchdown from her own 10-yard line. But I only threw the pass 3 yards to Torrey. Should the quarterback get credit for the 90 yards that she ran? Well, right now, that's all we can do is count it as a 90-yard play. There's nothing that says, well, it was only a 3-yard pass, and she broke all those tackles, and she should really get a lot more points. So the advanced data that we ought to be able to be getting from Sports Radar very soon is going to change the way fantasy players are playing the game and will add a lot more sophistication to a marketplace that's definitely ready for it.
And if we weave in De La Salle basketball again, we're analyzing the stats to know who's doing what, where, and all their trends. So De La Salle's doing all this plus more. Anyway, okay. All right, so Rob said he's hiring. I know Justin's hiring. Paul, you hiring or?
Well, seasonally. Football season's coming.
Okay.
Yes.
Tori, I know we're hiring some folks at 4 Cube. All right, so anyway, anybody who's interested, see these folks out. To wrap it up, it's about 1 o'clock. Everybody takes 30 seconds, 1 minute to give the audience a few parting thoughts.
Yeah, so I've been at this since 1993. I left public accounting, and Paul convinced me fantasy sports was going to be big someday. He kept saying it in 1993, and turned out he was right. So I've been an entrepreneur from sort of that point forward, and I have to tell you that in this environment in the Twin Cities, it is a little bit of a hidden gem. I think you can get a lot of support and mentorship in this town. So the parting words of advice is, don't ever give up if you got a good idea, but surround yourself with the right kind of people and advisors that aren't in it for the quick payday.
Yeah, I think mine would be that, so Sport Engine, our business, it's a very, very large market. It's a fragmented market. We do think that somebody is going to build a very large, billion-dollar revenue, thousands of employees, forever company in sports technology. We believe it's big enough to accommodate that. Certainly, we'd hope to be that. But what I would kind of tell this room is that that wouldn't have been an option for us if it weren't on the backs of some of the early adopters that we had that were in this state and probably even in this room. Not so much investors, but actual buyers of early product. And I think you heard it with Nick today. I think you heard it with some others in the 60-second pitch. But I think it's a pretty special thing when a community is open to its startups to actually do business deals with them. I don't think you can overestimate how important that is to give the local boy or girl a little bit of the advantage in the RFP process, so to speak, if they've got a viable solution. That gets talked about quite a lot within the startup community of helping each other out. Probably gets talked about a little less in the Fortune 500 community, but it's just as important, maybe more important. And I think that most startups start successfully on the backs of deals done locally, where they probably got a little bit more of an advantage in that RFP process than the outsider did, but without it, they wouldn't be there. So I think that's a takeaway for the people in this room who are responsible for a lot of those types of decisions.
I'm not as plugged into the investment world as Rob and Justin are, but I am very plugged into the will you have coffee with me at Caribou world. Rob and I were talking about this just maybe a month ago, and Rob gets a lot of this too, and I bet you do too, Justin, where it's, people have heard me on KFAN. They know that I'm in the fantasy space, and they've got a great idea because it's fantasy, and it's passionate, and people love it. And the I've got an idea people, and I don't know that this is really advice, or not. But what I have found is that there's a wide disparity between the people that come in and that I have the coffee with and have really just got an idea and they have that and nothing more than that. And the people that by the time I sit down and they've reached out to me have done a business plan, financials for the next 3 years. They've got, they understand the competitive landscape and they've done full searches on everything else that's already been done. And that's maybe 10% of the people that I end up having these coffees with. And so I don't know that there's really a lesson here other than I think I get shocked and maybe a little bit disappointed at how many people don't just take the, the 20 hours on an idea where you're ready to give up your job. Walk away from your six-figure job so you can go do a passion play and you don't have a business plan yet. It always seems odd to me that happens. And Rob and I were just talking about this. I don't know. Maybe there's no lesson to be told here. But you guys took all the good talking points earlier.
Make sure you do your homework before calling you for coffee. That's the takeaway, right?
And I like chai lattes.
Okay.
By the way.
All right. Tori?
So I think everybody in this room probably comes from a point of passion, being an entrepreneurial spirit. This is my third startup company, and 4Cubed has been around for 10 years, but we're in the restart-up mode. So as you guys know, the iGaming industry shut down on Black Friday, and we're now back on the wheels of being a multi-million-dollar company. We just received a minority investment from Mille Lacs Corporate Ventures out of, obviously, Mille Lacs Casino. So, I mean, there is a lot of opportunity on the table, I think, from me coming into this all over again and looking back. And when I think about an entrepreneurial spirit, what excites me the most is, one, the challenges that we go through every single day to make us succeed. But know that when I come into the office tomorrow, what I do today and tomorrow are completely different. And when I look back 5 years from now, I did that. We did that. You guys did that. And I think being in the entrepreneur role gives you the opportunity to say that and gives yourself a lot of credibility to kind of like these guys said, keep pushing to the next level and don't give up when you hit the one road bump you're going to get. Because if we were at a road bump from when Black Friday happened, we wouldn't be here. And we've clearly bounced all the way back, if not plus some. And it's because we stuck out and said, in 5 years, we're going to be here. And now in 5 years from today, we're going to be way far advanced than where we are today. So my only advice is don't give up and keep pressing forward. And when you hit a bump, just keep going.
Yeah, this to follow up on that. When I visit my client Facebook in California, I walk in the lobby, and right behind the receptionist's head is a big sign that says "Fail harder."
Fail harder. Good one to take.
I think it's funny that I look back on this, but I was probably more successful in high school, college, those years. I was probably one of those people that sat inside of a school book and never left my house. And one of the things my parents always told me is the things that you work the hardest for are the things that you value the most. And I think looking back on that now, every time I turn a new leaf or I turn a new corner, you guys can look at my portfolio on 4cube.com as far as meet the team. That quote will come up every single time. And I think it's something that I've lived by since I was 12. And my parents told me that if you don't try, not trying is worse than failing. And the things that you work the hardest for are the things that you value the most. And those are two mottos that I've lived by since I was told them.
Great, thank you. All right, we have the room as long as you want to stay, so thank you.